to the Gamification Quest podcast, brought to you by Sententia Gamification. I'm your host, Monica Cornetti, and here we dive deep into the transformative world of gamification. From our origins in 2014 as Gamification Talk Radio until now, our quest remains the same: to put an end to dry, dull, and ineffective corporate training and adult education. Because your learners deserve better. Are you ready? Let's get questing. Hi, my name is Monica Cornetti, and I am your host for the Gamification Quest podcast. Now, today I have a really exciting panel of guests, and the guru or the instigator, whatever you want to call her, behind this whole event is Rebecca Arnett, who is one of our master craftsmen. She is completing her certification as a level 3 gamification master craftsman. And in fact, the project we're talking about today, an escape room that was created for cybersecurity for her organization, is the project that she designed and deployed. But she didn't do it alone. We always believe that designing within a bubble, which means by yourself, is a dangerous place to be because you will miss things guaranteed. It's much better to have a strong team with a variety of skill sets, such as Celia Sellers and Jamie Phillips, who are both here along with Rebecca to talk with us about this escape room that they created. So before we get started, let me just give you a little bit of background on the three. So Jamie is a young professional with advanced experience in building and managing a high impact cybersecurity training and awareness program. Very cool. Celia brings a wealth of experience from a customer service oriented background and deep commitment to community engagement. Very good addition to the mix. And Rebecca has experience in education in creating innovative training and development technologies. Rebecca has dedicated herself to creating strategic solutions that impact company-wide growth and drive business objectives. And the great thing, I'm sure that Jamie and Celia are just like Rebecca, that Rebecca is one of our go-to people in our Game Garage and Sententia communities because she's always got ideas. And she's not afraid to try something, which is a really good characteristic to have, right? If we're not taking some risks out there, everything will just end up looking the exact same. So let's get started. I want to hear, I know I saw a few pictures that Rebecca had shared about the setup for the event and how exciting that all was. So when we think about cybersecurity, what makes an escape room appropriate for that specific type of training?
So with cybersecurity, a lot of it is about awareness, and it is a very heavy subject. There's a lot of acronyms. It's very scary for a lot of people. So you have to find ways to make it engaging. And I hate to say the word fun, but fun, as Jonathan had pointed out, serious fun, to have people actually retain the information. And being able to do things both virtually and in person now, we are able to utilize gamification in order to make those concepts stick. That maybe things that they hadn't heard of before, or maybe things that they have to kind of think through. And escape rooms make it easier because it's something that they puzzle through. And at the end, they walk away with knowledge that they may not have had, or they're having to do something that they've maybe not been as familiar with.
Really good, because one of the things that we always talk about here is that awareness is meaningless, right? Like we're aware of a lot of things that we don't do anything about. But I do have to say, because Rebecca's in my circle of influence, that she has made me aware of a lot of things that now, before I take action on something, I'm like, wait a minute, Rebecca just talked about this. It looks like it's an email from Microsoft or GoDaddy, but you check that, who it came from. It's probably not. And so as we think about that application of this understanding of the many different ways, these ways that as we think about cybersecurity risks of how we can encounter those, that's a lot of fun. So when you think about that design and the awareness idea, but what were some of your learning outcomes that you were looking for? What were you hoping they would walk away with?
Yeah, so it is a combination of some things that are awareness and do, and then there are some things that are do. So there's an overarching learning that we wanted them to walk away with. And then internally inside the escape room, there are additional learning objectives, the performances that we want them to master in order to kind of do the overall program itself. So this being National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, every October, CISA, which is the federal government, came up with the top 4 human risks, which were phishing, which is to talk about, as you just said, is that email from GoDaddy? Is that email from Microsoft? The other one that they talk about is making sure that you have your software updated to make sure patches are happening, that you are staying as cyber secure as possible. And then what were the other 2?
Multi-factor authentication.
Multi-factor authentication. Mm-hmm.
And
I can't remember the 4th one, but definitely hone in on those 4 behaviors, as well as just an array of other topics that we see within our organization that may be threats to our organization, maybe because of the information that we handle, or we may handle credit card information, just things like that. So just understanding your threat landscape and what you want to educate your workforce on as well kind of helped us look at our learning objectives and what we wanted our audience to walk away from this.
The 4th one is passwords.
Oh, interesting.
Like we talk about passwords all the time, and then I'm like,
passwords. It's like an obvious, right? So yeah, all right.
I would dare to say that those are almost like the 4. They're cornerstones, right, of cybersecurity. They're the very basics that we want people to be aware of. So that's where we start.
So was this designed for every employee within the organization, or a specific departments? And I don't want you to reveal anything that we should not be. So this is how we get information about.
The event was actually, we created this back in a very small version of it in 2019, and then like Rebecca has come along and really taken it to the next level. So it was kind of an idea of, making this available so our workforce members could learn about it. So it was open to every employee within our organization, but we didn't just market it as an cybersecurity escape room. We also marketed it as a team building event. So it kind of served 2 purposes, and people would come in and they got to work together to solve these scenarios and puzzles, and they worked together as a team. But we saw that they were also learning about cybersecurity at the same time, even though they may not have thought they were, because they were looking for something that may have dealt with a casino or money or ransomware. So enticing them to move around the room and really not think that they're learning about cybersecurity, but they really are. So we opened it up to the entire organization as well as any employee.
Yeah, we opened up
Go ahead.
Everybody, but we also, when you're building out any of these things, you do have to take personas into account of who are we really marketing this for. And not everybody wants to do the escape room. Some people do enjoy watching videos instead. So we started to kind of like things like people who are curious. We wanted to market this to people who like solving puzzles and riddles, and they're adventurous. They like digging through the boxes. They like finding hidden clues. Those ones that prefer that interdependence, because we do have quite a few people, because it is open to the whole organization, that really probably prefer to do things on their own. But this is more marketed to people who want to do that team building, as Jamie said. And that was part of why we marketed it to everybody, is like, hey, here's something you can do as a team, which also helps because it allowed maybe some people who were hourly employees, because we do have the depth and breadth of hourly employees, people who are salary all the way through, and it allowed them to potentially utilize this as part of their team building for the year as an hourly employee. So it gave them a little bit of wiggle room. And of course, we also added a competitive aspect to it, and that ended up being one of the game mechanics, because some people want that did I win? We have the best time? And what do we get for being the best time? So we also market, and you're building these things out, making sure that you're keeping your personas in check to kind of go through there as we're looking at like, who are we doing this for? So we actually built for the whole cybersecurity awareness month. Was a depth and breadth of different aspects of it. We're talking about the escape room today, but we also did virtual events where people could come and actually listen to a lecture. We had outside groups come in and actually do games and things like that. And then we'll have a wrap up at the end of this month. And so different personas got to experience National Cybersecurity Awareness Month in a different way. So really depending on how they want to learn.
Yeah, that's really good. I know that over the years that I've known Rebecca, she's shared with us a number of different ideas, some really, really great ones that companies have done for cybersecurity. And then when she said she was doing the escape room, now this was everyone, it was alive, right? Everyone was there who was participating in the room live. And I'm curious, and I don't think I can ask this question of you, but I'm curious as to different levels of employees. And I don't mean that as individuals, but just on an organizational chart. Like, are there certain groups that are really likely to not adhere? Like, is it the C-suite more so than your average contacts customer service rep, right? Like, who's more aware of it? Or so, but you don't have to answer that question. So I that's a curiosity question on my part, but I want to hear about the mechanics that you specifically chose, and then also about how you are evaluating. I hate to say whether it worked or not, but as we roll out programs, how do we evaluate the efficacy of the design? How do we get proof of concept? So let's talk about some of the mechanics that you used for this event.
Yeah, so based off of the personas, of course, that we're aiming for when we're building out this, I really started to look at one of them is achievement, and that's using that we gave them when they escaped the room, we gave them an "I escaped" sticker, and they got to wear that for the rest of the day, which does two things. One, they get that achievement, that proud moment, but two, as they're walking around the building and people are seeing they have the sticker that said "I escaped," they are now asking like, well, oh, what did you escape from? And it gives us a way of marketing for the next year. And our response was, don't tell them what you did, but tell them we had fun and maybe some things you learned. And then we also took their picture as a team, the team and their time in the escape room. We did advanced priming, which is letting them know ahead of time what was expected of them. And we used some mixed media for that. So we actually had a video created that explained the story and the why of the room, because that's such a big.
One of my favorite things about the room.
Yeah.
Other than something else we may get to later, I'm sure Celia and Rebecca won't let me forget to add it.
Well, go ahead and add now, Jamie. So what did you created a video for it?
No, I didn't create the video. No, they always pick on me because I talk about the lights that I wanted. So it's like setting the atmosphere for the actual escape room.
It's important. It's
It
important, Jamie.
No, but
Yes.
the video was really good that Rebecca's talking about as well. So I think there's some points in there that, within the video that when our audience was watching it made them giggle as well, just because some of it was kind of cheesy. But it's, again, building that relationship with them and making them feel comfortable as well as they move into the escape room, to where they know that they may be challenged through the different scenarios or puzzles.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
The video was very much like your classic pre-escape room type of video, where you have the quote unquote bad guy talking on screen, what's going on, and like Jamie said, gives you the whole setup for the room that you're about to enter. And it does create a good atmosphere, puts the participants in that mindset. Hey, we're about to enter a challenge here, and we have to work together, because there is no way you can do an escape room alone, right? They always recommend you have minimum of 4 to 8 or more people. So it kind of preps them to, hey, we're going to be working as a team to get through this.
Yeah, that's really good. I know my role is always to help look for things rather than try and solve things, right? Just go look, Monica, keep looking, because
Right.
there's somebody else that's out there doing the solving. So
And that's interesting. You'll see the team dynamics kind of evolve as they're going through this room. You're going to have who's going to be the puzzle reader, who is going to be taking the notes, who is going to be searching for things, who is going to, so everybody kind of falls into a role, and you will see some teams where they have that down a little bit better than other teams. So that's always
good.
interesting.
Yeah, that's good. I'm curious about like how you started the planning and what was the process. But I also am curious, was it all in one room, or did they physically move from room to room, or how did you coordinate it all?
So the room was set up, it's a huge conference room that can be divided. And so we divided it except for a small little hallway that they had to walk through. So when they entered, they walked into one room, which we call the pre-prep room. And this is where they watched the video. This is where we kind of explained what was going to happen and go on. And it was a brightly lit room. So, and then as they walked through this little 2-second like corridor, like literally is, whoop, we turned the green light on. So Jamie will talk about the green lights in a minute, but we turn the green lights on. And so when you're walking into the hallway, into this little area, it goes from the dark to this green color. And then when you enter the room itself, all the puzzles are set up in one room, but that room is a different look, feel, and color to it. So you feel like you're in a completely different room, even though you're just in the same conference room. It's just halfway partitioned off.
Yeah, very cool. All right, Jamie, talk about the lights. Tell us about the lights, Jamie.
No, it's just some LED lights. One of the things is that I am a component of branding. I like to make sure that what we do stands out within our organization. And so sometimes you have to maybe look at what colors your organization uses within their own branding, and how can you use something that's kind of opposing and stick out amongst every other corporate communication or email that goes out. And I think our program, we've done a good job at that. And our program that we've branded is like a lime green color, as you can tell in our shirts here. So we used green lighting within the room. And I just think it helps kind of set the atmosphere again and make almost not transporting them somewhere else, but they don't really feel like they're on campus
Right.
work. So I think that was also an important element, making sure that the room looked different enough to where that mindset switched, and okay, we're ready to have fun, we're ready to learn. We don't feel like we're at work anymore. So I think that's just an important element to the game mechanics. Even going back to that, I think it's an important element of that.
I agree. And it's one of those that I wish I knew who to give this credit to, but I remember reading a long time ago, though, that like when you're playing a game, when you go to a movie, that you're so engaged with it, like that feeling like when you walk out of that movie theater and it's still daylight out, right? Like it's like, how can it still be daylight? All these things have happened and it's still daylight. So when you think about that magic circle that you get people to enter, to forget all of that back here, that we're going to play and we're going to learn while we're here, and accept the premise of the rules while we're in here, like what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do in order to escape the room. So that's really good. And something, I don't want to oversimplify it, but something as simple as lighting can have such a huge impact. And it's all those little, that to me, it's the aesthetics of design that take it from, oh, that was good, to that was so great, right? Really a different experience. And I think that comes from bringing a group like yourselves together, where you've got these different strengths and experiences that you can all bring to the table on it. Very cool. So I love the idea of the stickers, because that adds another, we talk about extrinsic and intrinsic motivators, and those are all important, but that extrinsic of seeing the sticker, to me, that greases the skids, right? It gets other people curious about, what was that? What did I miss? What, that FOMO, who had fun, what did they learn, to get more people engaged with it. And I think it's a great way to bring, it seems like it's an extrinsic motivator, but really it's tapping into the motivators that are inside of us. So I love that component. So you had some competition, you had achievement, you had puzzles to solve, you had these unlocks. Those are some of the mechanics that you used.
Yeah.
Guilds or teams, did they self-select or did they come with their department? How did they end up on a team?
Both. So some of we allowed them to sign up, because that was one of the things we had to think through, is how do we have people sign up. In the past, we've had them we've selected days and times and they came in, but this time we used Microsoft Forms. We allowed them to come in and tell me like how many people they had on their team, what were their preferred time slots, and then we just coordinated with them on that particular time slot. So we had some people who maybe didn't want to compete with their team or couldn't compete with a team, but they could be added to a team. So some were just straight departments, some were individuals that kind of all came together, and some were a mix, which also allowed for some additional dynamic changes. I don't know all the people in this room.
Yeah. So Celia, it's another, see, I have this high curiosity. Some people call it nosy. I say curious, but like the teams that gelled well, are those teams that worked together, or are those teams that really didn't know each other, but they just each found their place? And I know that wasn't probably something you were measuring at all. So that's another curiosity question. But I am interested in, how are you evaluating? I know people had fun, and we of course love that, right? We want people to talk about that was great, really enjoyed that. In the long run, when we're asking an organization to give us both the time and the resources to plan something like this, how are you evaluating the overall effectiveness of it?
It was a double barrel. In the room itself, as we were facilitating this room, we were watching to see where they had areas of struggle. Was it a particular puzzle? Was it a particular concept? And then after the escape room, so the escape room only took 30 minutes. We had a full hour for them. So you had your pre-room where we talked about what was going to happen. You have your escape room. They're given 30 minutes to escape. And then afterwards was the post room, where we actually went in and did a debrief. And that helps them to solidify what they learned in that room, because we talked about it. And some of it was phrasing that they had not heard before. I think somebody asked about the rainbow table attacks. And even we have to go look up things sometimes. We're like, oh, hold on. This is, when we were looking for things, we're like, oh, this is a new concept for us too. Hold on. And that helps to solidify for them, oh, this is what's happening. So that was one way. And then we asked them what was something that they learned on top of that. So we saw the struggles, and then we're asking them, okay, what did you learn in here? And then afterwards, we gave them an actual evaluation of the escape room, which of course does have some of the smile, the Kirkpatrick questions, but also some of the things of like, what did you learn? And they typically did this survey within 1 to 2 days of them escaping. So now we can see what is the actual knowledge gained, because they're not right there in the room. It wasn't fresh in their mind. Now it's been an hour, now it's been a day, now it's been a couple of days. So now thinking back, what is something that they learned? Did it stick?
Yeah, very good. So escaping the room wasn't a measure of success or not. So again, just wondering, what do you know, what percentage of teams were able to escape? Half, less than half, third, most?
Yeah.
More, right? A little bit more than half. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, so we let everybody escape. So whether or not they went over the time.
Okay. All right.
That's the other thing. Once the timer ran out, we tried to encourage them to continue going through the scenarios. It just added to their end time. So while we tried to encourage them, let's move through the puzzles, because again, we wanted them to learn about all the different scenarios and objectives that we had planned for them. So it just added to their time. So they may not have been the quickest, but we also see that as it remain, or keeping it as a positive. So we didn't really want to create, oh, we didn't escape, that Debbie Downer, the negative aspect.
Yeah, loser.
Yeah. So everybody, we tried to encourage everybody to continue going through the puzzles or scenarios, even if the timer, did hit 30 minutes.
All right, those are good. So I want to ask each of you, what was your favorite component of the design itself? And then I also want to talk about, if someone's saying, well, I want to do an escape room, we refer to this, and it's a little bit, I don't want to sound glib, because we refer to this as a pop-up escape room. And I know it didn't just pop up. I know it took a lot of time and planning, but the idea behind the pop-up is you don't have to build a space. You don't have to have a house or a mystery dungeon that you create. It literally
Think
can
they
be a
have in the
conference
tote.
room, right? That you can convert into. So that's what we mean by the term pop-up. So I want us to talk about, what do people need to consider if they were thinking, I would like to do a pop-up? But before I go there, Celia, let me ask you, as you think about the design and the implementation of it, what was your favorite component of it?
I liked how we had, it was almost every single puzzle was 2 steps. You had a puzzle to solve and then a box to open. Once they got the hang of it, they were on it. But that took a little bit of guiding and coaxing along at the beginning, because they would forget. They would solve the puzzle and they'd be like, oh, well, we have the answer. Well, now what? Now
Right.
you've got to find the box with the hint on it, because the boxes weren't, it didn't just say, oh, this is puzzle 1's box. The boxes had images on it.
Yeah.
So they had to put their thinking caps on and just really, okay, so the answer is MFA. Well, what in this, which one of these boxes is multi-factor authentication? And they had to go find it. So
Yeah.
we did, that got them moving around and really trying to connect a couple of things together to solve.
I love that, because it is that connecting of the dots, not just the individual pieces.
That relates to then real life, right? So
Yeah.
we know this about phishing, but when I get an email, what am I looking for to clue me in that this is a fish? This is not from my friend Jamie. I need to delete this and block the sender or whatnot. So it just kind of, those are the connections we want them to make in the real world.
Yeah. Jamie, how about for you? Besides the light, what lights? I'm teasing. I'm teasing
The
you.
light.
Yeah.
Now, I think, so while we had different learning objectives and things that we wanted to make sure that they learned about, we also had other elements within the room that may not have been a learning objective. So like Rebecca talked earlier about the rainbow table attack and just different terms. So while that particular thing may not have been an actual learning objective or something that we had hoped or that we had listed as a learning objective, they still learned about it because they had to read through all of these wall cards and posters with different definitions, and it was just a lot of information in there. So I think that was another thing, because we also saw whenever they came back to that post room workshop, they talked about those things that may have not been a learning objective, but they learned about it in the room.
Right.
I think we're focused on those learning objectives, but also what else are they walking away with? And I noticed that a lot, that when they came back, they talked about things that may not have been a learning objective, but we're still in the room.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I of course I am that high curious, so I do like to learn, but it's fun where there's this little bit of exploration or surprise and delight along the way. That's really good. Rebecca, how about you? Favorite component of it?
That was actually where I was going to go. I am all about the mixed media and and having fun in areas. So we would throw red herrings into the mix every once in a while, whether it was UV light and it would say do this, and then you flipped it over and it was laughing at you, or I would write things on the paper that maybe looked like it should be something, like I wrote passwords and stuff and stuck them around the room. We wanted to make the red herrings fun enough that if they did get caught by it, it didn't take so much time away from their escaping, but just something that they would grab and they were like, oh, this has got a password on it, and we're talking about passwords, but no, that has nothing to do. I mean, nobody should be using the 1 2 3 4 5 password coding and the fact that it's there. So using things like that and the surprise and delights, because Monica, I know you're big on surprise and delights, but we did put some of those in our puzzles too. So a couple of our answers for the locks was 369, which references a song, and people did sing and started to kind of dance when they read that, and that's always fun. And then 2468 was one of our other codes. So 2468, who we appreciate, and the scream out cyber shield. And then our last one was one of our clues. So we did provide clues. If they were just struggling, we would give them clues. There was a penalty for receiving your clue of 30 seconds, but it did allow them to kind of move past something. So one of our clues was, who are you going to call? And the answer is cybersecurity, but everybody yelled out Ghostbusters, of
Of
course.
course. Yes. Yeah.
You know,
That's fun. I love it.
I
So
like adding those small things in there.
when you were observing, were you in the room with were you there kind of like at moving around, or like at a station where people could come to you, or how did you do it?
I think I, I don't even remember. I think I moved around for some of them, but then maybe Celia would take a different time spot and maybe she would kind of facilitate a little bit more of it as well. Rebecca did a lot with the digital components that she built for the room. So whenever they actually had to go to the computer, she helped with that. So it's kind of a mix, and you
Yeah.
also kind of feed off of, I won't say not really the energy, but the energy of whoever's in the room and whether or not they're struggling. But we were physically in the room, yeah, with them.
Okay. I was wondering because you were saying watching them. I was like, was this video or were you live? Yeah.
No, we
Um,
we were in the room with them.
yeah.
And yeah,
That's good. It's fun. All right. So we need to wrap, but tell me, what are some of the considerations for people that are thinking, I could do this? Because I know you gave us some price points, Rebecca, of what somebody else could come in and do it for you. Or like, let's say you've got a team, like the three of you, we could do this. So what would be some things I need to consider?
I think the first thing that I would say is obviously looking at, okay, what do you want to teach them? I mean, I think that would be, and especially I think that may be easier for us to say now that we have these mechanics built already. But again, it's really, okay, what am I trying to educate them on, and what do I want to communicate? What am I trying to make sure that they walk away from this particular event or learning opportunity with? So I think making sure that we understood that at the beginning helped us. And I think that would help really anybody that wants to build an escape room. Just really make sure that you understand what those learning objectives are that you really want them to walk away with, I think would be my recommendation.
Right. Yeah. Because just like any other design that we start, it's easy for us to get lost in the fun and forget why we were doing it in the first place, right? So we enjoy like the red herrings or sending down a blind alley, because it is good to build into the game, especially something like cybersecurity where things are not necessarily as they appear. Like no one's going to come out and say, I am trying to get your passwords, right? So just to be aware of that. But we can get hung up in the playfulness and forget why we were doing this in the first place, which again, if we're going to go to our people that make the decisions and say, this is a good thing and here's why, we have to keep our eyes on the prize, right? What is it they will be walking out of here knowing? And it's that hook. We need those hooks because they're going back into their real space and real time. And we know that a lot of training just falls to the wayside, but this kind of experience where they're on their feet, they're moving, they're solving, those are really great hooks for retention and retrieval for later. Very good. Is there anything you want to add that I've missed that you think people should know if they're thinking of doing an escape room?
yeah. One of the things, as you said, this is a pop-up escape room. We're able to throw it up, tear it down. We put it up the day before. That evening we tore it down. It took about 4 hours to build up, and then about an hour or so to tear down. The almost everything we got was from Amazon. So yeah, price point for somebody coming in and doing this for you is somewhere between $10,000 to $30,000, depending on what company you're using and what they're doing. And you only get to do it once. Whereas for us, we ended up buying lock boxes on Amazon, and just knowing how many we needed, and we had a few extra, buying different styles of locks from Amazon, which is something that we learned for next year. So there's always new things that you learn for what you're going to do next year. So our locks were not all the same, which is fine if you're doing like numbers versus words versus this, but some of it you had to turn the lock this way versus you had to turn the lock this way, and they were very confused. So I would recommend, if you're doing this, get the same style of lock of how they have to
That's
turn it.
good. Yeah.
And then looking at marketing materials, we are very grateful because we have internal departments that can help us print and everything else. But looking at it, you could potentially do a pop-up escape room like what we've done for anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000, depending on how much internal versus external you need. And the bulk of it is spent on building out your scenarios, so you know what type of locks you need, what type of boxes you need, how big is the box, and then building out your marketing materials and understanding those types of things. But for the pop-up side of it, the big thing that we found that worked well for us is you decorate the tables. We had a whole casino table that they had a roulette wheel on it and some chips and things like that. And we had one that was all money and gold bricks, because we were talking about ransom and we're talking about things that like have to do with money. And so there's clues internally in the room, as well as the puzzles themselves and the clues.
Right.
There are actual things in the room that kind of mimic that, but it makes it fun. And a lot of these decorations we can reuse again. One of them is Jamie was going to do a fishing rodeo before the pandemic, and we had a blow up pool and fishes, and we just ended up buying some more fish. We had fishing poles, and people had to go fishing because it's fish. And so it is a pun as well as a marketing tool, as well as something that they remember. And you can do one of these pop up. You just have to know how big your space is, and you have to know what you need for that. But almost everything we got, you can order it on Amazon. We didn't go anywhere special. You didn't, except for Celia had to use her Cricut to create the lock box.
Vinyl forms, yeah.
Yeah, with the vinyl. Other than that, pretty much everything else is created through Canva or through Amazon. So you can create one and not have to have any type of specialty products in order to do it.
Yeah. I always think that in things like this, we really are only limited by our creativity. And the boundaries is what helps creativity to thrive, right? So that you have X amount of dollars. All right. Well, we can make that work. We can do it within this amount of time and that amount of money. Whereas I think if you gave me an open checkbook, I'd have zero ideas. I don't know. I need boundaries for creativity. So super fun, really fun. I hope that you get rave reviews from everyone who took it, as well as your supervisors, managers, leaders, that the organization sees it as something that's worthy of more consideration for things like this, because we know that with adult learners, there's this fear that sets in that they're the only ones who aren't going to know something and they'll look foolish in front of their peers. And when we make something that has a playfulness to it, and we can try something that didn't work, try something else, it gives us the freedom to actually learn, and then you take that away with us, and so we can retain it and use it in the workplace. So Celia, Jamie, and Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. This was just really great. I know that I can't see all the ins and outs of it because of proprietary restrictions that we have, but thank you for sharing what you could share. And it was really, really helpful. And I think this is just that catalyst, that spark that people need to think, I could do this, because escape rooms are something that still people are so curious about how to do it. And it's something that we can all take and do in our workplace for a very reasonable cost, reasonable amount of time, and again, only limited by our creativity. So thank you so much for being here with us on the Gamification Quest podcast. And for those of us who are listening, be sure and check back. We'll be back with another episode sometime soon. So we'll see you again soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
This has been an episode of the Gamification Quest, brought to you by Sententia Inc. If you enjoyed this presentation, click the thumbs up button below and share your comments. If you'd like to stay in the conversation, click subscribe and ring the bell. You'll be alerted when another episode is released or when we upload an informative video on the gamification of learning. And thanks for all you do to put an end to dull, dry, boring learning experiences.